What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Inside Inter Miami, the Miami Herald show on all things Inter Miami. I'm back this week, our co-host Andre Fernandez, deputy sports editor at the Miami Herald, joined once again by our Inter Miami beat writer Michelle Kaufman. Interesting time for this franchise right now between Copa America on tap. Lots to unpack this week, but let's start with that amazing victory, considering they were so shorthanded already, to then do it with 9 men to beat Philly. And we're talking not just any MLS team, one of the better MLS teams in Philadelphia. To pull off that win, how big was that, Michelle, to see for this squad who's looking for any points it can while their superstars are away?
Oh, it was huge. I mean, that win, when you're looking at that game and you see that they go down to 10 men and you say, oh boy, they're down to 10. They already don't have Lionel Messi. They already don't have Luis Suarez. They already don't have Matias Rojas. They go down to 10 men and then they go down to 9. And you're saying they will be so lucky to get out with a tie. I mean, if they got a tie, you would think that they would be celebrating. Everyone just figured there's no way with 9 men that you're going to be able to do anything. And probably you're going to lose the game because they were a pretty long time with 9 men. And all of a sudden, in the 90th minute, I feel a little bad for Leo Campana. He played 90 minutes. He didn't score. He comes out in the 90th minute. They bring in another Leo, the third string Leo Afonso. He comes in and immediately just finds this open space. He had a chance to maybe pass to Benha, but Benha was sort of running out of steam. He saw an opening. He saw that the defender kind of, made a cut, leaving him a space, and he goes and takes a very bold shot and scores the go-ahead goal, which ends up being the game winner. A guy who literally had come off the bench in the 90th minute, Leo Afonso, a local guy, Brazilian American grew up in Boca Raton, played for Boca United, and he comes in and he's the hero of the day. And the celebration was amazing. I mean, all the players, Busi and everyone, just all of them, Jordi Alba running around, jumping around this kid. It was a huge victory for them to come back to South Florida with 3 points, playing with 9 men, to come back and remain on top of the league. They're still in first place in the whole league. They're still in first place. Now, they have played more games. They've played 19 matches. They've played more games than most teams. But they're in first place. They take 3 points on the road at Philadelphia with only 9 men and missing 3 national team players. That is about as fortunate as you can get.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the standings, you have Cincinnati that's still nipping at their heels, so any defeat opens a window for them to take the lead in the conference right there, even though they have a cushion over most other teams. Philly, maybe not what they were when they were up at the top of the league a year ago, but not a bad team either, a team that's in the fight for a playoff spot. They have 20 points. They've had a lot of draws this year, 8 of them overall, 4 and 5 beyond that. So a solid win no matter who it is to get those points. And now here come the reigning MLS champions that we've talked about so much, the Columbus Crew, and 2 of those guys, David Ruiz and Tomas Aviles, not going to be there, on top of the fact that they already don't have Messi and Suarez and everybody else that's involved in Copa America. So they're going to have to do the shorthanded thing again if they want to come out with another 3.
Red cards were really unfortunate. They both came from young guys. And David Ruiz, by the way, this is the second time that he gets thrown out. And after the first time, he said he learned a lesson and that, he learned a very valuable lesson, this and that. And now, boom, he's out again. He and Aviles, both Toto, are going to be out for this next game. So, yeah, in addition to the starters missing of Suarez and Messi and Rojas, now you're missing Tomas Aviles Toto, who was a starter in the back, center back. You're missing David Ruiz, who was a sometime starter. So yeah, they're gonna be shorthanded. Meanwhile, Columbus Crew, defending champion, also made it all the way to the final of the Champions Cup, beat Mexican teams, beat Monterrey, that Miami did not. They don't have players on the national teams. So they are going to be pretty much at full strength. The team that is the defending champion at full strength coming to Miami, a depleted team. Now, it will be in Miami. It's going to be hot. And Miami is on a string now of 13 games unbeaten. But this is going to be a very, very tough game. And we spoke to Tata this morning, on Tuesday morning, excuse me. And, he didn't want to celebrate that Philly win at all. He was being asked about, the celebration in the locker room after, and he said, that was very short lived. Like, that was great. That was wonderful. But now we have a really tough game coming up against the defending champion. He feels that they're really the best team, one of the top teams in the league, if not the top team. And they're going to be playing pretty much full strength. Miami's going to be missing, several of their best players. So it's going to be a very, very big challenge for them for sure on Wednesday night.
Yeah, Philly more of a survival game, I guess, in their eyes. They're trying to just get those three, move on, but a costly one when you think of the red cards and everything. Yeah, this is going to be they're going to be even more underdogs considering Columbus is at full strength in this game. But hey, I mean, this team right now, anything they can get pretty much, because we have, like we said, we have Copa America coming up, which we're going to talk about a little more on this show. But off the field, some interesting developments. A new president of football operations hired this week by Inter Miami, and it's someone with, shocking, a Barcelona background. Why not, right? I mean, let's just add to the mix. Tell us a little bit. You met him, Michelle, and I got to talk to him a little bit. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this really came out of nowhere. All of a sudden, on Monday, the word starts getting around. I got a call. Hey, something's going to happen today. They hired. His name is Raul Sanyehi. He is a Spaniard who did come to college in the United States, played college soccer, but he spent most of his life in Spain. He was at Barca from 2009 to 2018. So he was there with Tata Martino. He was there with Leo Messi. He was there with Suarez, with Busquets and Alba. So he knows all those guys well. After that, he went to Arsenal. So we're talking about a guy with experience at Barcelona and then Arsenal. And then the last 2 years was at Zaragoza, which is a second division Spanish team, which the Mas brothers are part owners of that team. So he really got to know the Mas brothers as they were involved with Zaragoza, and he was with Zaragoza. He wanted to make a career switch at this point, and yesterday they announced, or Monday they announced, that he is the new president of football operations. Now, the big question with that is, what did that mean for Chris Henderson? Chris Henderson is a sporting director and chief soccer officer. So what does that mean? Does it mean Chris is out? Does it mean Chris is being squeezed out? Everyone I spoke to Jorge yesterday, I did, and I spoke to Raul also. They said absolutely not, that Raul is not the sporting director. Raul is the president of football operations. He is the global big picture director of everything football, everything sports side. And then Xavi Asensi was promoted from chief business officer to president of business operations. He also comes from Barcelona. These two guys work together in Barca. So you've got one guy who's in charge of the business side, and then Raul is going to be in charge of the whole soccer side, which includes the academy. It includes the second team. It includes the first team. It includes things like, where they're going to go play in the off season, and camps, youth camps and tournaments and this and that. So he's brought in to give sort of global experience as the team is, becoming already a global brand, and they want to keep becoming a global club. Chris Henderson will remain on as basically the general manager of the first team, where he's dealing with the contracts with MLS. His expertise is mostly in MLS, which is a very complex, complicated salary structure. So he's going to be involved in that, but he'll be working hand in hand with Raul. Raul stressed to me several times and at a press conference on Tuesday that he is not the sporting director. He will be working with Chris Henderson. It doesn't mean that Chris Henderson is leaving, that they're going to be working together. So, the club has very high aspirations. Jorge Mas, as we know, he's, freedom to dream is on the back of their shirts. He's a big dreamer. He's a big talker. He has big plans. And I think he just figures, and what he said yesterday, he was at a conference where he said, that he wants to bring in people with global expertise, because this team is not just an MLS club. This is a global club. This is a global brand.
Right.
And going forward, they are thinking about the post Messi era. They are thinking about 5 years down the line. He did mention, by the way, as long as we're on this topic, Jorge Mas said at this conference that he fully expects, if Leo, barring a severe injury of some kind, God forbid, he is expecting that Messi would play through 26. That, his contract is through the 25 season with an option for 26. He fully expects that if he's healthy and feeling good, he would play in 26. And the plan is for the new stadium in Miami, Miami Freedom Park, which is going to be 28,000 seats adjacent to the airport. He says that that will be completed December of 25, and the 26 season will kick off at the new stadium with Leo Messi. That is his hope, and that is his plan, that Leo would play 26 and, perhaps even play the 26 World Cup, which is in the United States. So,
Right.
The thought that maybe Leo's going to be done now or in 25, now we're pushing the Leo window to 26. Now, Tata was asked about that after or before training Tuesday morning, and he said, "Well, I think that that's everyone's dream. That's what everybody wants. That's what everyone wants to happen, including me." He said, "We all want Leo to play 2 more years, 3 more years, 4 more years, but that really is going to be a
Never
decision that's
retire.
going to be up to him. Him and his family are going to make that decision, not
Right.
the owner of the team, not the coach of the team, not the fans. He's going to decide that based on how he feels. It's only June right now of 2024. So we
Right.
don't really know how he's going to feel in 26. But Jorge Mas, freedom to dream, that's his motto. He
Yeah.
dreams. We never thought that Messi was going to come here, and Messi showed up here.
He's here.
So,
Right.
so
I mean,
who knows?
right. But it's good. It's good that they have their eye on the future. It's good that they have their eye on, more than anything, on sustainability. And I thought that was the interesting part with this hire of Sanyehi, is that, you look at the background. I mean, yes, Barcelona, we laugh, but global brand name. Arsenal, global brand name. Like you said, that's what they want to be. That's what their dream is of becoming. But the more people like him that you can get in the door that have the experience on what it takes to be that. I mean, we talked so much earlier a few months ago about how, the missteps they had on that preseason tour and all the chaos with, how things were handled. Well, you have to have people that know how to handle a global brand team like those two, a Man U, Man City, all those types. So if they truly want to become that, you would assume this is the kind of hire they need to make, and maybe more in the future. But it's good to see that, and it's good to see, yeah, if Messi were, the vision is to have him on that surface, on that playing field at the Freedom Park to open it up that year. That would be tremendous for them. But also with an eye on, once he's done, whenever that day is, keeping this team and this name as big as possible.
Yeah, one of the things he talked about, Raul Sanyehi, one of the things he talked about, I asked him about the post Messi, and he said, well, let's be perfectly honest. There is no replacement for Lionel Messi. This is a generational player. And he pointed out that even among all the best players in history, Leo has had the most longevity of being at the top, the most consistency for the most years. Other top players that were fantastic had shorter windows where they were really at the top at their peak. This guy seems to have been at his peak, we're 20 years or whatever, and here he is. He's still doing things that are making people, drop their jaws, even at the age he's at now. He's about to turn 37 next week. So he said, look, no one is going to replace Leo Messi. Let's not fool ourselves. When Leo does retire, it's not like they're going to bring in another Leo and it's going to be the same. No, he said there is nobody that's him. But the idea is to stock this team with high level players, experienced players, and younger players, so that when he does leave, and he will still be involved in the club, part of his deal is that he gets equity in the club. So he will be a part owner of this team going forward, and he will be involved. His influence will be there, just like David Beckham's is. And that is a draw for players who are looking where to play. If they have David Beckham and Leo Messi both involved with the club, that is pretty alluring. But he said, his goal is to make sure that this club runs properly. And it's exactly what you were just talking about. He said from top to bottom, if you are a global club with all of the, all of the pulls that they are getting from all over the world, from the sports side, from the business side, from the media side, sponsors, he has experience, a lot of years experience and expertise with Barca, with Arsenal, and Zaragoza to a lesser degree. So he feels that he's really fit to bring something to this club that the club really truly needs at this point. And he called it an inflection point. He said that Inter Miami right
Yeah,
now, even though it's a young club, he feels like they're at an inflection point now that if they want to really elevate themselves to be an important club in the world, they're talking about things like another thing they're dreaming about, talking about Jorge and him, is to have Inter Miami play, for example, in the Club World Cup, to have Inter Miami play in Copa Libertadores, in some international club tournaments. And in order to do that, you need the club to be very, very good. And he says that one of the things, and David Beckham said this too, but the academy is crucial to him. He says that when you look at Ajax of the 1970s, when you look at Bayern Munich of the 80s, when you look at Real Madrid of the 90s, when you look at Barca, Manchester United, all those clubs that are the signature name, big name clubs, they
yeah,
all had very, very strong academy programs where there is an identity for those kids from the minute they come in at 12 years old. And the
right.
majority of the senior roster is coming through that system.
Yeah,
And that is what he would like to see, not just going and plucking players from overseas, but developing Inter Miami players from the ground up, from the academy. And he said that that is the recipe that all those top clubs used. And he really very strongly believes that Inter Miami needs to continue on
yeah.
that path.
It's very similar like in baseball. You have a strong farm system, you tend to have a good team that sustains and does well. And it's similar too to the dream that we've had. We continue to hope as Americans to see the USA team do well. Remember, they was strengthening the developmental program at home and getting, growing homegrown players, that sort of thing, which, it has had success. And now USA soccer is better than it used to be 20, 30 years ago. And still striving for more, but Copa America might be a good segue to jump into the Copa America part of this, which includes USA. But before we do that, Captain America right now, Mr. Team USA. You got to talk to Christian Pulisic. Very interesting programmer that he was a part of there in Little Havana. Tell us a little bit about that, Michelle. That looked pretty cool what he was doing with the kids.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting that 5 days before Copa America starts, Christian Pulisic was in Little Havana on a very nondescript corner. I wrote a story about it, MiamiHerald.com, if you haven't read it. Christian Pulisic pulls up to the corner of 20th Avenue and Calle Ocho, 8th Street. And people that were standing there on the corner were like, what? I mean, they recognized him. A lot of people down here obviously are from
Did they?
Central
That's
America
good.
who live in Calle Ocho area. And they were like, wait a minute, that's Pulisic. That's Pulisic. And they started taking pictures and everything. He started a program exactly 1 year ago. It's called Pulisic Stomping Grounds. And it's a program that he wants to take national, but he launched it in Miami, in Little Havana, at that corner. And it's an after school soccer program that is for free. They also offer chess. It turns out that he loves chess. He learned to play chess from his grandfather when he was young. It's been a big part of his life. He said it still is. He plays every day online. And he said it really keeps your brain sharp, and he thinks that even helps you on the field. You're seeing, like we talked about Busquets, sometimes players who seem to be making moves 2 passes before. It's kind of like being on a giant chessboard. So anyway, this program is for kids from the neighborhood, from Little Havana area. A lot of them are coming from Shenandoah Elementary, where they can walk over after school and have a safe place to be after school. They get soccer instruction, they get chess instruction, they also have arts and crafts. And they've had 300 kids already come through this program. It's funded also by Puma, which is his sponsor. Pulisic and Puma together have put this together. And 300 kids have come through the program. They've all had instruction in soccer, in chess. They have arts and crafts, and they get a ball. They get a uniform, they get cleats. So it's really been a wonderful program. And he said that, he just feels like soccer, the pay to play system that we have in this country is very expensive. And a lot of the kids that are coming up through American soccer are kind of rich kids and suburban kids whose parents have enough money for them to pay to be in these clubs and play in these tournaments. But there are so many kids in the United States in urban areas in particular, and Miami being one of them, where there are a lot of immigrant kids who grow up from the crib learning soccer and loving soccer from their parents, watching soccer from the time they're babies. Their families are not watching the NFL and college football and basketball. Their families have on soccer on television from the time they're little. And a lot of those kids don't get noticed. A lot of those kids don't have a platform to showcase themselves to scouts, for college scholarships, for professional teams. So this type of program is something that Christian Pulisic wants to do around the country, to have more opportunities for urban kids, for underprivileged kids, to have an opportunity to play the sport, develop under coaching. Of the 300 kids that have been through his program, 90% had never had any formal coaching. 90% of those kids had never had formal
Yeah.
coaching. And when you think about the average suburban kid in America who plays soccer, from the time they're 4, they're out there with a coach and with cones and with uniforms and with cleats,
Yeah.
and they're playing in little mini games and they're playing in tournaments. But a lot of the kids who are talented and absolutely love the sport, they don't get any instruction because they can't afford it. So that is what Christian is trying to do with this program. And it was really wonderful to have a chance to talk to him. I talked to him about the program and also delved into a little bit about, the pressure on Team USA going into Copa America, the pressure on him as the
Yeah.
captain, as a guy who's playing for AC Milan. He's the face right now of US soccer. So we had a great conversation. I really liked him. I had never had a chance to talk to him one-on-one, and I found him to be very humble, intelligent, and generous.
Yeah, I like seeing that because like as you know, earlier this year I had a taste of that of youth soccer and that situation. I did a story on on Miami Edison, who it was, in this case it was their girls soccer team, but they have the club in Little Haiti. That's for both boys and girls, for kids just like that. I mean, underprivileged is an understatement sometimes with the situation some of these kids have at home, or maybe emigrating from Haiti. And there they give them the chance for free to play soccer, to train. They get their uniforms or cleats, any kind of equipment that they can to give these kids a chance. So it's good to see that Pulisic and hopefully others like him, invest in programs like that, because it's true. There are a lot of kids. I mean, I'm just speaking from Miami, all around the country, that are not, in that more fortunate situation and are able, that love to play soccer. And you never know how much talent can come out of that. You may have, the next big superstars comes from some of those programs. You never know; it could happen. So great to see,
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think they have to tap into it's been talked about for a long time, but the more that US soccer can tap into communities that are not being tapped into, minority communities, underprivileged communities, urban communities, there is a huge population of soccer players there who are not being seen and who are not getting training. And they are talented. I'm sure that the talent is out there. It's just that it's not being seen, it's not being tapped into, and it's not being developed. So, yeah, it was really interesting to talk to him. And I found it interesting that right at this point where he's about to become he's the captain of the US national team. He was about to report to Dallas for camp for Copa America. He took the time to spend the whole day with those kids in Little Havana because it meant that much to him. So that was really wonderful to see. Absolutely.
Well, on that note, let's transition to the Copa America. I know you wrote an extensive group by group preview this week, Michelle, because you're going to be there for match number 1, Argentina and Canada, in Atlanta this week on Thursday, to kick things off in style with Lionel Messi right there at the forefront. Argentina, of course, on a roll. They're the defending champions in this event. They're the defending World Cup champions, big favorites in this tournament as well. I guess let's start with that group that they're in. They're obviously one of the favorites to advance. Who else is in their group? And, can Argentina win this again this time with Messi there.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, this cup is, it's not just Argentina is definitely the heavy favorite. I mean, we're talking about they are the defending champion of the Copa. They are the defending World Cup champion. Their roster, it starts with Messi and goes from there. Their roster is completely loaded. I mean, they are absolutely the favorites. There's no question they are. But there are other teams that are very, very strong. And one of them is in the U.S. group, which is Uruguay. The Uruguayan team is very, very strong. And they are, they're in the U.S. group. The U.S. is the host country. However, one of the things I talked about with Christian is that the U.S. national team is officially the host of this tournament. It's in the United States. However, when you are the U.S. national team and you're playing against South American and Central American teams on U.S. soil, you can often be outnumbered by fans of those countries. I would venture to say, and I said this to him, this is the only national team in the world. And if you can name me another, raise your hand, send in a note. I don't know any other national team in the world that plays home games that feels so much like road games. Because when they played Colombia in Washington, D.C. a couple weeks ago, it was majority yellow Colombian shirts. And when they played in Orlando against Brazil last week, which they ended with a 1-1 tie, which was very good. The Colombia game was a 5-1 loss. It was a disaster. They tied Brazil 1-1, which is a good result for them. In fact, Christian scored the one goal on a free kick. The United States national team, while it is playing on U.S. soil, which is an advantage, of course. They're not having to be in a different culture, a different environment. But when they're playing against Uruguay, there are going to be a lot of Uruguayans in the stands. And, when they're playing against Panama, when they're playing against Bolivia, these countries are going to have a lot of fans in the stands. And so it's not necessarily a huge home field advantage for the United States. So they're going to have to play against Uruguay, which is a very tough team. If I had to predict, I would say out of that group that Uruguay and the United States will advance from that group, the top two advance. I don't know which order, but I do think both of those teams will advance. From the Argentina group, I think Argentina and Chile will probably advance. Peru and Canada are the other teams. Canada has an opportunity. They've pulled off some surprises. They have some strong players. Alphonso Davies is a great player. They have a new coach. So they have a chance. If I had to predict, I would say Argentina, Chile from that group. Colombia, Brazil from Group D. I think that those are probably the best two teams in that group. Brazil is struggling.
Yeah, they are.
Brazil is in 6th place right now in the South American World Cup qualifying, which is like a cause for panic already. Even though
what has
2 years
happened?
from the World Cup.
I mean, we've seen them declining in recent years, though. Like even in the World Cup, they weren't as good. Before that, it's been a while since they've won a World Cup. Period. But we've seen like a steady decline of the Brazilian national team. I think they'll get out of the group, but I wouldn't be surprised if they don't win the group.
Yeah, the Colombia is the team to watch. If you are looking for the team that, I'm not saying nobody's talking about them, everyone's talking about them because they are on a 23 game unbeaten streak dating to 2022. They have not been beaten since 2022, Los Cafeteros. They have a very strong team. They keep winning and winning and winning, and they're in the group with Brazil. So this is not going to be an easy group for Brazil. And then, I think that Paraguay and Costa Rica are the other two teams. Both of those, I think neither one of those is probably as good as Brazil and Colombia, but Brazil is not necessarily going to win this group with Colombia in that group. I think Colombia could win that group with Brazil finishing second, or Brazil will win and Colombia finishes second. But Brazil definitely has something to prove in this Copa America. They want to turn things around. Ronaldinho went on social media and just trashed the national team, then so I tried to backpedal a little, but he was like, I'm not even going to watch Copa America. This is the worst Brazil team I've ever seen. And I mean, he was really ticked off at the current team. So they have a lot to prove.
Yeah, they're lucky that this isn't like a group of death, because I'd say if the third, if the perceived third and fourth team in the group were a little stronger, you'd have to put them like be like one of the upset alert teams in this tournament for sure. Because I mean, you never know. Maybe Paraguay. I think if Paraguay would be the one to knock them off, to have to pull like a huge upset, but it would take a big letdown. But again, it's going to depend. It's going to depend on Brazil's just their execution, how they come out. Are they playing up to their talent, or are they again underachieving like they've been in recent months? I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah, and then
Another
the
one's
other one
yeah, I
group
was going to
that's
say
really unpredictable is
Mexico.
Group B, Mexico.
Yeah,
Mexico, Ecuador, Venezuela, and Jamaica. I would say that is the most unpredictable group. It really is. I mean, once upon a time, you would say that Mexico is a shoo-in, whatever, but not anymore. Mexico has really been up and down. They disappointed in the World Cup. They've had a lot of turnover. The coach has gotten rid of some of the old guard and brought in some under 23 players. So there is a lot of pressure on the Mexican team, just as there is on the Brazil team. There's pressure on the United States team as the host, coming off that 5-1 debacle. I know it was a friendly, but to lose 5-1 on home soil to Colombia was really a cause for concern for U.S. fans. And they now have, like we talked about, they're calling it the golden generation of U.S. players who are playing in some of the biggest clubs in Europe right now at Juventus. Christian Pulisic playing AC Milan. These guys have experience now. These guys are playing in the big leagues in Europe. They're playing Champions League. They're playing against the top competition, and the American fans want to see that translated on the field here in the red, white, and blue. So, I think there's a lot of pressure on Mexico. There's a lot of pressure on the United States. There's a lot of pressure on Brazil. Colombia is the one that's dancing in here. The Cafeteros with their 23-game unbeaten streak. They're a very lively, fun group. I think that they're going to be a real team to watch. And of course, excuse me, Argentina. Argentina definitely is the heavy favorite with Leo Messi at the helm as the captain. They are the heavy favorite to win.
I'd say be careful Venezuela doesn't shock somebody too, and maybe that shocker being Mexico. I think Ecuador wins that group for sure. I think if Mexico's that down, I don't see it. But the U.S. always makes it hard on themselves, so I don't know. I just don't see them winning the group. I do see them getting through. I agree with you on that one, but I think Uruguay does win the group because for some reason they're just not consistent. Like they'll have a debacle, like you said, and then they'll have a great result the next week. So I don't know, until the U.S. can kind of show more consistency. I just don't trust them to win that group. I think they can get into the knockout stage and then let's see what happens, but it's going to be tough, like you said. I mean, I can't think of another nation either. I mean, at least not in one that's on the level of a U.S. team where we're talking about like a major, someone ranked. I don't know what they're ranked exactly right now in FIFA, but on maybe the top 20, top 25, a nation like that deals with going in and being, maybe not booed, but not being cheered, like being drowned out, their fans being drowned out. But I think it depends on the city too, because certain cities where this tournament's going to be played, you will have that huge throng of supporters for the U.S. team. If it was here in Miami, I know they're not coming here unless maybe they get to the championship game. But if it was here in Miami, definitely they're going to get drowned out by the South American country supporters.
Yeah, and when the Mexicans play in LA, like Mexico is playing Venezuela, I believe the game is in LA. That's a Mexico home game. I mean,
Right.
that is, there will be Venezuelans because there are everywhere, and fans are traveling to all of these games from all these countries. It's like a World Cup. I mean, it's a huge tournament. But the U.S. still doesn't have that huge traveling passion. There is a following for it, but it's not as big as it is for some of these other countries where, for Argentina, the amount of fans that are traveling from Argentina and from all parts of the United States to go watch the Argentine team, it's overwhelming. No matter what stadium they play in, their fans are going to show up. The U.S. team kind of relies on, when they play in the Midwest, they get a lot of support. When they play in a place like, Portland or Seattle or someplace like that. But when they play in cities like New York and DC, Dallas, LA, Miami, it's tough. Even Orlando, tough for them to get a majority crowd because there are so many fans from the other countries that live in these cities. And that is very unique to the United States. I mean, for all these people who are watching this podcast or listening around the world, it's not like this anywhere else. When your national team is playing, everyone in the stadium is pretty much rooting for your national team, and maybe there's a small group of supporters for the other country. But here, oftentimes the U.S. team is drowned out by the visiting team. So that's another thing that they have to deal with that nobody else has to deal with. So it's going to be a very, very interesting tournament. It's kind of a test run for the World Cup 2 years to go. They're going to be playing in a lot of the same stadiums, so they're going to be testing everything from security, ingress, egress, parking, the fan experience, the hotels, the transportation, all of those things. It's going to be a test run for the 26th World Cup and for Club World Cup next summer. So it's going to be very, very interesting month, starting this Thursday with Argentina against Canada. And then on Sunday in Miami, Uruguay against Panama at Hard Rock Stadium.
Yep. And Michelle will be in Atlanta for the opener and then back home for that Uruguay-Panama match with full coverage at MiamiHerald.com. So check it out there. As soon as the game is over, you'll probably see, start seeing content from Michelle. Maybe we'll see some of this.
One more thing. Oh, yeah, we'll do some of this for Uruguay, yes. I wanted to also bring up that I put out, there's something I published, it's called the Ultimate Copa America, the Ultimate Fan Guide. If you look at that, I have put together a list of local watch parties. So for those of you that are in South Florida, whether you're from South Florida or whether you're visiting to see some of the games at Hard Rock Stadium, I put together a list of South Florida spots where they're having watch parties at different bars and restaurants around town. There's some really big soccer festivals that are going to be going on everywhere from Doral, Miami Beach, Fritz and Franz in Coral Gables, and Wynwood. There are a lot of places around town where you're going to see huge soccer celebrations and watch parties. So I have a comprehensive list that you can look at on there. And if you don't want to just sit and watch in your living room, you want to go watch with other passionate fans, I have a big list of places that you can go. So go have some fun and enjoy, because that's what this tournament is all about. It's about the passion. It's about the fans. It's about your national pride. So this is fun. This is time to go out and party and root for your national team, whatever that team may be.
Well, I've already seen a few people, no joke, I've already seen a few people on the streets wearing their Argentina jerseys. So they're getting excited already. I mean, they don't need any motivation to do that. Catch Fritz and Franz if you're in the Gables area before they go. That's a shame, right? I mean, they're I don't know when it is, right? They're only going to be around.
They're not closing. No,
they got closing.
They got a new lease.
There we go. I must have missed that.
Yeah, they were in danger of losing the lease. They got the new lease. A lot of fans and people came out to the city hall and demanded that they stay open. So Fritz and Franz is alive and well. They're hosting Euros right now. All the Euro games are Fritz and Franz, and then all of the Copa games also. So he's going to have big parties over there, Harold Newegg. But also in Doral, they're having a big festival. In Miami Beach at the Band Shell, Miami Beach is having a big festival. Several in Wynwood. A lot of places in Wynwood and in the Brickell area, downtown Miami. A lot of big watch parties with drink specials and games and competitions and all sorts of things. So be sure to look at that listing and go have some fun.
Definitely. Well, happy to hear that about Fritz and Franz, and happy to hear that you'll be right there for those first two big matches there. And remember to check out Michelle's work at MiamiHerald.com. Check out this show at MiamiHerald.com, watching it or listening to it. And remember, you can always listen to it on Spotify, on any of your favorite podcatchers, and, of course, on YouTube. You can watch us as well. We'll be back next week recapping that, not just the first part, where we're going to be seeing that happen probably, but in different in their home countries' uniforms this time, not in the pink and black. But we'll also recap how the pink and black did. Could they pull off a perceived upset? Well, this is the one time that team is not going to be favored when they're that shorthanded. We'll see how they do against the Crew. And for Michelle Kaufman, I'm Andre Fernandez. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy all the soccer at your favorite watering hole or wherever you watch it. And we'll see you next week.